Hi everyone. Today we are going to move on and talk more about visualizations. And the first topic will be the bar chart. But before we do the bar chart, we want to do a review of the list comprehension and make sure that you still remember that. Say if we have a list and then I want to grab all the values in the list that are evenly divisible by 3. And then without list comprehension, how can we do that? Say I have to create a new list and then I want to do an iteration to visit all the numbers in the original list. And then for each member, I check whether that number is evenly away. That number mode 3 will be a 1. And if it is, and then I'm going to append that value to the new list. And then eventually I print the new list, and let me correct, I will keep only the values that divide 3 will have 1 as the remainder. Okay, so this is the old Pythonic way to do this work. And well, in our data science world, and there's a better way. And well, probably for in the world of Python programmers, and they may choose to use the old way, Pythonic way, or the data science way. But in our textbooks, and you will see this a lot. So well, it doesn't matter if you really want to do that in the data science way, which is the list comprehension, or you want to use the Pythonic way. But when you see this syntax, you should be able to understand that. Okay, so well, for the list comprehension, the first thing is you start and end with a pair of the square brackets, saying, well, inside this list comprehension and it's guaranteed, I'm going to return a list. And then I'm going to do for I in the old list, which is exactly this part, right? And then there's no colon, and then well, I say this is a part should return a true or false. And if this part returns a true, and then I'm using this statement saying that is the value I'm keeping. So there are really 3 parts. So in the middle, we have the iteration. The iteration is exactly the iteration you want to do, like this one. And then you have a condition, and this condition will give you a true or a false, and we are only keeping the values when this condition is a true. And at the very beginning we have an expression, and this expression shows what is the value we are keeping in the list to be created. Okay, we are just compressing this logic into one line of the code and using square brackets. That is list comprehension. And for the first part, well, here I'm only keeping the I, right? So that is the value which modes a 3 will give us a 1. If you want to do something, you can also modify this expression a little bit. Say I want to add 1 and then keep the value. And then instead of the 7 and 13, now I will have 8 and 14. Okay, so that's for the list comprehension, and it's very handy to use, and sometimes we just forget to use it, and that is okay. If you want to use the old Pythonic way, go ahead and do that. But if you see that in a textbook, and you just don't get freaked out, because that is very simple. It's just a data science way of doing the list comprehension. And the next part I want to say a little bit is the enumerate. And for the enumerate, and again, usually we start from a sequence or a list. And say for this one, we have several movies. And then if we want to do a enumerate, so in enumerate, and I should comment out this code for now. Okay, so if we do a enumerate, and then you will get this. So it will only tell you that is a enumerate object in Python, but you don't see what are the values inside. So let me uncomment this part and run this again. So I'm doing a iteration. So I'm taking the enumerate object as a sequence, and I'm visiting them one by one. And for each of them, I print that, and you see that is 0 anyhow, and with a pair of the parentheses. In Python, when we have the values separated by comma and then outside we have parentheses instead of the square bracket, what is that? That is called tuple. And by the way, folks, do you call that tuple or tuple? Okay, sometimes, well, because when I first learned programming, my teacher told me it is tuple. So from time to time, I say tuple. But whenever I ask my students, and most of my students will say that is tuple. So, well, I'm gonna try my best to say tuple in my course. But when you hear me saying tuple, and I mean same thing, okay? But anyhow, when I'm doing a enumeration on a list, what do I get? I got tuples, a sequence of tuples. And then for each tuple, I have two objects. Number one is a number, that is the index. And number two, that is the item from the list, right? So we have the zero anyhow, and then number one, and number two, number three. Okay, and then after the enumerate, and sometimes we may do this for I and then a underscore in the enumerate. Well, what does this underscore mean? So usually when we are doing the underscore, I say, well, I don't even bother to give that a name, but I'm using those two variables to visit, using I to visit 0 and then using this underscore to visit anyhow. So, okay, and here is an interesting question. Can we really print the underscore? Is that really a valid variable name? So let's try this. That's interesting, right? So even though we don't even bother to give that a variable name, but this underscore itself is also taken as a variable name. So we are using the I to visit 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then we are using this underscore to visit the second member in the tuples, and that will be the movie names. Okay, but usually it's really uncommon that we have to do that. So if you really want to visit both, and then how about we change it to movie name, and then movie name also here. Okay, well, in most of the cases, if we are doing the underscore, this means we don't use that variable, and then we don't even bother to give that variable a name. Okay, so let's continue. And eventually we have everything, and now we are making a plot. So here is the number of the Oscars, and then for the x-axis we are shifting, but we are creating a list comprehension, that is from for I and underscore in the enumeration of the movies, and we only care about the I, we don't care about the name. And for the I, which are those values, I increase zero point 0.5 on each, so I got this one. And why do I do this? Well, because if you don't do that, and then the bars will skew on the left side. But for the X ticks, I want them to be in the middle of the bar. So I have to shift the X ticks to the right side by 0.5. Okay, and then I got these values. And after that, I want to do a bar chart, and that is the that is the x-axis, and then the num of the Oscars will be shown as the y value. And then I add the y label, and then the title, and I add the x ticks. For the x ticks, well, that is for the 0.5 here, I do the first movie, and then for the 1.5 here, I do the second movie. Okay. Okay, now wait, I'm showing you my answer key. Okay, and let's move on and do one exercise. So for this exercise, well, we have the GDP per capita and then the colors. And remember, they have the 1-to-1 relationship. So the index 0 of the GDP per capita corresponds to the index 0 on the color. and then the same thing for index 1, index 2, index 3. So the first thing I want to do is I want to zip them together, and after they are zipped, I want to do a sort. Why do I want to do a sort? Because I want to show the GDP per capita from the very low to very high, and then I show this bar chart, and using this bar chart and plus the color, eventually I want to see what are the countries on the right side of the graph and what are the color on the left side of the graph. So you have to do a zip first and then do a bar chart. So go ahead, and I'm going to stop my video here, and I will show you my answers in the next video.